right. So, Roy, great to connect. And you just mentioned you just got back after a trip around in Europe. Roy is definitely one of the what do you call them? Globetrotters, the digital nomads, the workers that have no boundaries. Just to double check too, Roy, is your camera's on, is it? I don't know if I see
Yep,
it. Oh, there it is.
it's on.
Yeah. There we go. So yeah, you're definitely the definitive uh, Lebanese globetrotter working around the world on varying projects. So, but we gathered here today just to discuss, yeah, and at the beginning anyway, remote work, what it means maybe for Lebanon, its potential, how's it making an impact, some examples and whatnot today. And then, of course, at the end, if for anyone who's watching the video, staying towards the end as well, we want to talk about maybe a couple projects that Roy's working on that actually have great significance. So, so yeah, I mean, we've been trying to. Well, you've been trying to crack this nut now for a while. You've been working on how to resolve the economic malaise a bit in Lebanon. Do you want to kind of share your perspective on, what is actually the problem?
Problem is that we are not a main national hub where one would think to go outsourcing. Uh, we are not either Mexico for North America, nor are we India for the rest of the world. So our very small market, our internet and our political situation doesn't help us. And therefore it's hard, and we're not Ukraine, for example, or Russia, where you can think, oh, I'm going to get great developers, or Eastern Europe. All of those have stable economies, good internet, cheap labor, which we do have relative to the United States, relative to London. And so we can be that. We do win on trilingualism. We do win on strong educational institutions and attainments. We do win on entrepreneurial spirits. And if you give that's everybody in the world, I'm not going to say if you give Lebanese a chance, they can outwork everybody. But everybody who's grown up in a tough environment where the dollar hasn't been flowing and therefore they need to prove themselves are going to extra hard. So we do have that going for us. It's just that we're not on the main map when the main makers, the chief technology officers, procurement officers are looking to go near shore, offshore.
Yeah.
We're just not there.
Yeah. So it's part of the problem is really an awareness issue and possibly a bunch of bad PR, which we're trying to obviously showcase here that in the other way around, that there are a ton of great people who are skilled and educated and talented, and they're ambitious. They're looking for work and they're open to it. So basically, it's an awareness and partially a PR problem is what I'm hearing from you. It's so funny because in the last interview that I did with someone, they did bring up the competitiveness, also the global competitiveness. So they did cite for certain like Indian labor markets or the Asian labor markets as taking part of the pie, a big part of the pie, and Lebanese workers potentially being squeezed out, right? So we got to compete as well on a global platform too, right?
We have the skills. I mean, our team, Jobs for Humanity, has 10 timers, 8 are in Lebanon. And the reason I'm hiring Lebanese in Lebanon is not just because I'm Lebanese and I love Lebanese in Lebanon, it's because we have brilliant people who are extremely hardworking, the salaries make sense, the quality to pay ratio is higher than you might get in many other places. Obviously, the fact that we understand each other, we can work remotely out together, helps a lot. And that's why you can see on an individual level a lot of Lebanese working abroad, much more than any of us realize. And looking back at the stats within Jobs for Lebanon, we have more than 1,000 people hired just from this platform. And so it's happening in a big way, even though there's no marketing. There's nobody full-time on Jobs for Lebanon. It's just
Yeah.
growing. And so I can imagine the others, like most platforms out there, are working too. It's just that we're not just tooting the horns of it much, but Lebanese are finding work. I mean, you've got the tourism industry in Lebanon, like the restaurants, the hotels, the cafes, da da da. All of
Yes.
those we know are cyclical. They do work. We see them. We go. They're very visible. But
Yes.
then you see the agricultural sector. It somewhat works in the country.
Mhm.
But then when it comes to technology and outsourcing people's brains, for example, for being in anything from it, computer scientist to a designer to a marketer, but also an architectural or an online teacher or a translator or uh, a paralegal or a lawyer remotely, we've got brilliant people. Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not even counting the diaspora. The diaspora is just freaking brilliant also with all the experience that they bring. And a lot of them go back to Lebanon. There's a big back and forth. Like, ask a lot of Lebanese how often do you go back to Lebanon? You might expect in your mind they're going to say once, maybe twice. And if they say more than twice, you're like, oh, well, no. And if it's less than once, you're like, oh, okay. But the average in your mind is once or twice. So we're kind of connected, the
Yeah.
diaspora and the locals. So you have a ton of talent.
Our expats that work and live abroad and kind of travel back and forth, are they doing, you think, I use the word enough, but maybe that's not the right word. Are they doing the right things when it comes to, you know, raising awareness, education, or paying it back, or coaching, mentorship, even just encouraging entrepreneurship and engagement, like with the region as well as beyond the region? Are expats, you think, doing enough? Because they're supposed to be like some ridiculous number, right? Something like, I don't know, 15 million around the world or something like that, right?
I think the answer is fuck yes. That's the political answer. The reason I say this is because uh, if Lebanon is right now earning and the families were able to sustain the 2019, 2020 complete final uh, emotional uh, exhaustion, uh, physical damage, destruction with the poor, health,
Yes.
death, basically, and demoralization of their family. We're
Yeah.
still alive. It's in big part thanks to Lebanese savviness within the country, knowing how to kind of clear the debt that you had, knowing how to ration what you have and figure it out. But
Yes.
also, in part of it is many families still rely on remittances by expats. So they're doing it quietly, but they're
Yes.
doing expats.
Oh, it's huge.
So from that standpoint, it's huge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then you have a second standpoint, which is as an expat, am I representing Lebanon well? Lebanese are at the peak of so many fields. Look, you talk about it, you'll find a few examples. You name it, you'll find some examples.
Yeah.
And so when you think of a Lebanese, you think of a highly educated individual. You think of a
Mm.
trilingual person who loves their country, who advertises really well for their country, and therefore there is a sense of belonging. There's a sense of um,
Pride.
respect
Yeah.
that people have vis-a-vis the Lebanese.
Yeah.
Pride from us vis-a-vis us, but then respect from them vis-a-vis us. Oh, I love your food.
Mm.
Well, they were talking about someone who's advertised the food really well. Oh, I hear that you can swim and ski on the same day, or someone who's advertised that. Oh, they're so generous.
Yeah.
They were inviting me and then they were, over and over and then paid for my meal. It's generosity. There's all of these are good adjectives that we are so, but by who we are, by how much we give back, and then let's not discount organizations like Lebanon, Life, Deal, uh, you name it,
Yeah.
that Raymond Howard Foundation, so on and so forth, that are raising Jamhur dinners. Jamhur by themselves raise two, three, $4 million every year. Just the alums come together, they raise it, and what does that go to? Increase subsidies and scholarships for uh, kids across the country, across the religious spectrum, to be able to have affordable education. Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot that's happening. by the
Well,
Lebanese that are helping. Now, yes, are we as tight-knit as the Jewish diaspora? No way are we close. Armenian diaspora, no way are we there. I know we do more. I know that there's an individualist streak within us, but are we doing a lot compared to, I don't know, others?
yeah,
I think we're
other
doing quite
comparable
well.
diasporas. Yeah. I mean, what you're touching on makes me very proud. And then part of me is sort of when I saw with my own eyes kind of what's going on, sort of very frustrated because, like I said, I empathize. Imagine coming out of the university and not having an opportunity, or otherwise struggling for that opportunity. And then last but not least, if you're an experienced, worker, if you're a, intelligence type worker, like an IT worker or engineering design, and then being forced basically to leave, you cannot, potentially have opportunities locally. So I'm a bit frustrated with that part, but it's encouraging what you're saying because it sounds like everyone's trying to quote unquote crack the nut, right?
Yeah, I mean, the reason you're discouraged by the output of the government.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Why
Yeah,
can't
well,
you, as a Lebanese, when you graduate, have opportunities? Because your passport is worth, to be
yeah,
honest. I mean, look at how many diplomatic ties you have around the world. I mean, everybody wants a visa outside of Turkey and maybe Jordan. Even if you go to Dubai or Saudi Arabia, show up with your American passport if you have one, or any non-Lebanese passport, you're better off,
yeah,
even in Arab countries.
yeah,
So that is because our government has failed miserably
yeah,
at even agreeing among themselves to get a damn president in the
yeah.
last
No,
year,
I know. It's a
or
sensitive.
taking any kind of responsibility or taking any actions for everything that has happened, which has left our political status down in shambles. And that means the future of every individual, whether it is to have enough electricity or internet at home and clean water, or it is for them to be able to travel and represent themselves when they leave, or, and I'm going to blame them as well for the economic situation that we have, with
Yeah,
everybody's money stuck in the bank and the banks not having declared bankruptcy and paid back what they could, and
yeah,
instead keep holding people hostage.
yeah.
How are you going
Well,
to
I
go
mean,
ahead and
it's
spend
it.
when you go out your plane ticket, starting with your plane ticket?
They all have to work. They all have to work together in symphony to create proper markets so that, yeah, people can access opportunity. Otherwise, you're right, they get shut out of markets when you don't have this when you have a dysfunctional symphony. I hear you. But the one thing also that one of
The
the
government
interviewers
has the
mentioned,
opportunity. Yeah, sorry.
no, is that the Lebanese are extremely resilient and innovative, and they always are looking for ways to overcome challenges, whatever they may be. I mean, are you seeing inspiring examples of people, innovating past the problems?
No, of course. But I want to give one thing for I want to extend a just a what do you call it, an olive branch to government entities, in the sense that uh, when you have a population that has lifted you up so much and continues to do so, despite it all, despite the civil war, despite that level, despite the bankruptcy,
Yes.
what more can you do? And they're still there lifting the country up. At some point, if you just do 20% of your job, you're going to have a thriving economy. You're going to be better off.
Yeah.
So agree among yourselves.
Yeah.
Once and for all, realize that you've got, I don't know how many different factions
Yeah.
and religions and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Find a common ground. Everybody, every one of you, just
Yeah.
look at the other, accept them for them being here and what they need.
Yeah.
Find a solution that works for them, and let them find a solution that works for you.
You, you
This is
know,
called basic negotiation rather than yelling at each other every single time you watch it. You listen to the news, it's like a yelling fight. You turn off the TV, you're like, no,
for sure,
what
for
kind
sure.
of
And I
dialogue is that?
and I totally, and I trust me, I can empathize in the frustration because I've seen it firsthand as well as at a distance. Um, this is the thing that I think there's merit in work. Now, you've chosen your career to focus on connecting people for work. I want to touch on that because I've always believed that work transcends so many boundaries. If a person does good work, you'd be willing to work with them, despite differences on many things. If their work is good, if it's something you need, if it's something that's valuable. So, I mean, yeah, you've chosen to focus your career, sorry, on work. I mean, what are the, I guess what's the, okay, so what's the value proposition going forward? We got to crack this nut. We're all going to pull together, right? We want people to go to work. I think remote work's part of the solution, but I know it's not the only part of the solution. So I'd love like just give us inspire us a bit with your perspective, because you've seen people go to work. You've put people to work like what, 3, 4, 500, 1,000, you said?
In Lebanon only, just the Lebanese through Jobs for Lebanon. That doesn't include Jobs for Humanity. Doesn't include so many. But let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Um,
I want to be inspired for sure.
I organized with at my prior company, Smart Recruiters,
Yeah.
an event where we had invited 70 men who were formerly incarcerated.
Yeah.
In California, were in prison, and they would all were released from prison like 1 to 3, 4, 5 years ago. And many of them were in prison for 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago. So that also touches a little bit on, are we resilient as Lebanese? It's not just us, everybody. You don't, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So I'm telling you about people who were locked in a cell that's not bigger than this, that's
Yes.
metallic, where you're sleeping on metal. You may be lucky there's a toilet in there, but it doesn't flush, and so you smell that all the time.
Wow.
And the moment you walk out, you're identified by the color of your skin, and it's one of four: white, black, Asian, Hispanic.
Yes.
And then you belong to that gang, regardless of whether you believe what they say, you don't believe what they say, and then there's a pecking order, just like what we have, and as what boys had. Girls is just slightly different. It's more collaborative. Boys had a bit of a pecking order.
Yes. Yes.
In terms of like, the alpha male that will also look up or suck up to this person, or that little groupie, and the people who are feeling left out. Same thing.
I love. So what did you do?
Right.
What was the initiative? What did you do?
So over there, we brought 70 recruiters, and we wanted to see how we can translate someone who was incarcerated skills that they've learned in prison into jobs.
Oh, wow.
I was moderating that session. So I asked, for example, give an example of, first of all, I asked how important is empathy. All the recruiters said, up there. All right, give an example of empathy. And then they were giving some incredible examples. Recruiters were just spellbound. I was like, okay, recruiters, your turn. How would you put that on a resume? Because how can you detect that what can they put on their resume for you to detect that? But the word.
Huh.
But this skill was obtained only because they're in prison. So go for another one. And then we went for teamwork. We got to resourcefulness. And then one guy raised his hand and said, I think I said project management, something like that.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I noticed that a lot of people in my prison were dying of diabetes.
Wow.
And there was no resources for prevention and awareness. So I went ahead and put together a diabetes program, talk about that, types of diabetes and how to prevent them and how you get it and all of that. And
those are great examples.
And that was adopted within the prison in an unofficial way. I was looking at, the CEO of Smart Recruiters looked at me, and then he looked at our head of customer support, and he was like one of the hiring managers there, and he's like, gotta hire him. And then shortly after, he still is there at Smart Recruiters. No need to name names, pointless. But after being
for sure,
5 years, 4 years in, he's crushing it at Smart Recruiters in a completely different world. But because you see the skills are easily transferable, and it talks to grit and resourcefulness and resilience.
So the project. So it translates over. So what you're suggesting here is that if you could basically have someone who's been in prison for an extensive period of time, you can take their skills, translate it. I mean, if you can do that, then there's, I can't even compare the two. It's actually not appropriate, but I'm thinking of all the bad press that Lebanon has, and the brush they've been painted with, the Lebanese workers and so forth, in many cases, night and day the world should be, in my opinion, looking at it as a labor market they should go to for either remote hire or hybrid hire or even direct hire. Just bring them into a country under a permit, like whatever, right?
Look, it's sorry, it's a choice. Like if you're gonna hire, like George, if I tell you you've just raised $10 million,
Yeah,
and you get to choose to build your business plan. You're gonna have it, you say my business plan says a team of 20.
yeah,
Now, I'm asking you in earnest,
yes,
would you have those 20 people be in one city, in one office where you're all looking at each other and building that thing? Or would you hire 20 people around the world, each with a skill? Or would you do a hybrid version?
yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you exactly what my view on this is. If someone if someone I kind of knew or someone that built rapport with me approached me and said, "Hey, we've got some amazingly skilled, educated, talented and ambitious folks. I think we can get them at a great rate. They can work remotely, and would you be interested in trying that out as an to augment part of your work functions in your company?" If someone pitched me that way, I might be like, okay, well, tell me about it. Like, so, of course, Lebanon is not the first choice, right? So many other countries come up for anybody outside of, let's say, Canada, United States. But if someone's pitching me and saying, hey, I've got a value proposition for it, I think this could be interesting. Why don't we look at it? Let's see if it's a fit in part of your organization. Maybe that could be interesting, right? So
Of course. And the reason I was putting that story up earlier, like giving you that choice, is because you're going to have employers who are going to fall here, here, or there. Even you said, I'm going to augment. You're not saying I'm going to make that my base. For me, the Jobs for Humanity, it's my base. Everybody's remote. And I know I'm not going to find talent, but I'm going to get the best price quality ratio anywhere for everybody. I realize that you're not going to have, it's going to be annoying because you have to communicate a lot. The onboarding is going to be slower. You're
yeah,
going to have things lost in translation. If you're not highly organized, you don't know if a person works from 9 to 5 or 8 to 7 or whatever it is that they do. You
true,
have no control over it.
true.
But you have to shift everything to an outcomes based, almost like a project based. But
Yes,
you could do it on a full-time basis, but you set your goals for the week and you're highly organized that way. So
you
but
you've
what but
go ahead. Sorry,
Mhm.
go ahead. Sorry, Roy.
What you lose in sitting in the same office and that extra level of productivity, you gain in, first of all, when you're hiring globally, you're not hiring in one city, unless if that let's be real. The
Hmm.
centers that are going to fund you most likely not going to be Lebanon. They're going to be big capital cities. These big capital cities have that money, but they're expensive. So I'm saying that chances are you're going to pay less if you're going to go for them. It's not every case, of course,
Yes,
but chances are this is what it's going to be. This is one of the main advantages. And you're giving freedom to people to say, hey, you want to work on the beach, work on the beach. You want to work on the mountains. You want to see your parents more. You want to use that time instead of going to the office. Instead, go to a place of your choice and be good in your mind and your heart.
yeah.
And you're going to have retention through it. It all depends on how you end up building your organization. So both are really important. Both are really good. Um, it just depends on if you can be a bit more organized
Well, that's half the
within
battle.
the remote as well.
That's
It's
that's
half the
half the
battle.
battle. It's my opinion. I mean, it's just my opinion, but you have to your management style has to be shifted when you have a part of your workforce is doing it remotely. So I've heard a lot of people say, well, it's just not efficient, but I think also it can be very efficient actually. But you just have to shift your management style to you're not dealing with walk down to someone's cubicle, right? Um, I'm curious. So, what? Why don't we shift for a second? I say this with the utmost, and I love the word earnest. That I'm super proud of what you've done because I saw when I first saw it. It just kind of blew my mind. I was just like, "Whoa! Someone actually took the initiative to do this." So what I what I want you to do is kind of highlight, Cole's notes, right? Cole's notes. What have you done with Jobs for Lebanon and beyond, if you want to touch on beyond, but Jobs for Lebanon? because to me, when I saw what you've put
Mhm.
together, I was exceptionally proud.
Obviously, thank you. So it's a we effort. So shout out to Neil, Nico, Mish, Yelda, Rhea, Rasha, Ania, everybody, George, Kinda, Edwin, Isabel. The list goes on, and I don't want to be missing anyone. Fabienne, Anita. We were 13 people who launched it, and then 40, 50 people who joined us afterwards. And now a
Amazing.
bunch of the names are coming up here. So if you do see this, I apologize, but your name is in my head. Um,
All the
it
amazing people.
was
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Can't do it
yeah, just some
alone.
really cool people who, and it's not just us, it's the media that said, hey, of course, and Marcel Khan was like, hey, get on my show, and then LBC said, get on my show, and all of these started to publish it because it so happened that it answered a need at the time, and it was done in a way that just worked.
Yeah.
And what this is simply put the job site for Lebanese expats to hire Lebanese locals. Jobsforlebanon.com, post a job, candidates can apply. And when you post a job, you get notified when a candidate applies. You could get this rank score of candidates. You get 40, 50 candidates. You get the ranking of them. You have thanks to smart recruiters, recruitment system that we're able to kind of use that to organize the entire funnel for a recruiter to do all their hiring on their own. We kept it free. It still is free. Sign up, hire. And so as a result, we closed a lot of that loop. So we've got about 30,000 Lebanese on the platform,
Yeah. That's
probably
huge.
6,000 in the diaspora who posted jobs. And I think 30,000 is a fraction of what we could have done and where we're going. So
Yeah.
I do definitely see us over the coming years, even though we haven't marketed a lot, because we don't charge, we don't earn. Because we don't
Yeah.
earn, we don't sit and advertise.
Yeah.
But digital marketing is a hell of a thing. So if you search jobs for Lebanon, jobs in Lebanon, Lebanese jobs, blah, 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 you'll see jobs for Lebanon. So you're going to go and then post the job, and then the outcome is generally good for both employers and job seekers, like a very high percentage of
Most people,
success rates.
well, most
Mm.
people don't appreciate that. They're like, they don't appreciate the level of effort it took to put that together. Like, say that again, 30,000, people who are plugged in. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, most people have no idea. We're talking years of work.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of love toward doing it. Like all of us, we were first of all, we're all pro Thawra. We were all pro the Lebanese going down on the street and saying, hey, I don't want to see any other flag outside of the Lebanese flag.
Yeah.
No, we come from all these various religions. We're not trying to tout our last names or our religions or any of that
Yes.
political parties. We don't care. We
Yeah.
just want to make sure that Lebanese have a dignified future. Just like if you are an Emirati, you have a dignified future because the country is prosperous. As a Lebanese, you want a dignified future because you want to have your children raised in there and you want your parents to live in dignity. You want to be there and buy your home and you want to have this Lebanese dream.
Yep.
That's all we want.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Well,
this job site is that like-minded people who came on it and started working.
100%. And this is kind of what I was touching on. You cannot have this dignity unless you have work. So you really need to have access to work that can help you fulfill part of all of your dream, right?
You have very, very uh, hardworking and exceptional people in Lebanon who really deserve a job. Like you're talking about one of the most educated populations in the world. Yes, the education sector took a hit in the last few years. One of the most educated, trilingual, smack in the center of the world.
Yeah.
Anywhere in Europe and Asia, like we're in that time zone. Even in the US, and you want someone to work the extra shift, and you've got an overlap, you can do it. Um, and you're going to have super highly qualified people. So who are
Yeah.
going to work at a price that's you can hire, four for the price of one if you're talking about developers versus the United States.
Yeah. 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 And I know that well because of course you have a sort of part of your backgrounds there in development and whatnot. We only have a few minutes left. I mean, but I love how you're just basically laying it on the line. So we're not here to sugarcoat it. We're here to simply say, you know, it's a tough nut to crack. Everyone's trying to work on this, or I shouldn't say many people are trying to work on this. It will crack eventually if we keep kind of, chipping away at it. I would invite people to jump onto Jobs for Lebanon and check out um, the actual video, because part of one of the video, the really impressive video that speaks to the personalities, and then of course check out the functionality on the platform. There's I don't know. I'm super thrilled that this type of a project even came about because, quite frankly, a lot of people wrote it off, right? A lot of people just said, we quit, we're gone, we're out, right? So I'm super thrilled about that.
It's hard to kill an idea. If you believe in something and then you see this idea vibrating, you don't care if you built it. Like
Yeah,
I don't,
yeah,
I don't have none of outside of this video, none of us have our names on there. You're not going to find us on there.
yeah,
Maybe if you go on LinkedIn and search, and then you'll be like, these guys have, and these guys and girls and theys have worked on the platform. Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah,
many people are like, they are Jobs for Lebanon because they're like, hey, this idea is there, and it ain't gonna die because it's an idea that talks about money flowing, jobs getting created, and therefore I can support my family, therefore I can have a fun life. I don't have to emigrate outside in order to enjoy what Lebanon has to offer and have a career.
so I 100%. I'm going to say this at the sort of towards the tail end of this. If you're watching this video, if you're an expat or non-expat, get to meet these people you're going to see on some of these interviews, and go into Jobs for Lebanon. And if you want to try, get some resumes going, explore. You have nothing to lose. That's about as direct as a sales pitch as you can. You have nothing to lose to explore, and you actually have a lot to learn. You're probably going to meet some interesting people in the process too. So, um, Roy, this has been fun. We should do this again at some point later on.
Anytime.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy we could connect, that we're mutually supporting each other in this journey. So let's see. Hopefully in the year and two ahead, we can make a dent. So on that note, I mean, thank you again. So
Yeah, George. Thank you. Thanks for having me.